Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Kelly Mahoney and Sean Cusack about their ceremony at the Wedding Pavilion, with a reception at American Adventure Rotunda and a dessert party at Italy Isola during the fireworks. I thought you guys would be interested to hear how they chose these locations and how they planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Kelly and Sean.
Hey, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for being on the show today. I always like to start at the very beginning and find out how you guys decided that you wanted to have your wedding at Disney.
I actually was the instigator of our Disney wedding. It started more or less as a joke when I was 16 and would visit with my mom, and we saw the Cinderella carriage, and it started a very strange bit where I would keep insisting to her that I wanted to pet the ponies, and the bit kind of took on a life of its own over the next 18 years, where every time we saw the ponies, I would start yelling about the ponies. So when it came time for Kelly and I to get married, I turned to her and I was like, well, where do you want to get married? Because I didn't want her to feel pressured into this dream of petting the ponies. But I was lucky enough that she wanted the same thing.
Well, of course, it's been his dream since he was very, very young. And it's a place that we both find really special. And I'd been going since I was a kid, but it had been years. And then when he took me for the first time, which was a very big deal, I kind of knew that was our place together. So why not have the most magical day in the most magical place?
It is a very special place for us. We enjoy it in two different ways. I'm more of a rides and technology, Imagineering focused kind of guy, and Kelly enjoys drinking around the world.
I'm more of a leisurely Disney goer.
Yeah,
I would say. But I can enjoy it both ways. I can kind of adapt to whoever we are there with.
Yeah.
But if I could hang out in EPCOT for 6 days straight, I probably would.
So then how did your friends and family react when they found out where the wedding was going to be?
I feel like this is so silly because oftentimes, having listened to this podcast so many times, the answer is usually gender swapped. But my friends and family were ready for it. As soon as it was announced that we were getting married, it was a flood of Instagram messages asking when the Disney wedding was.
I mean, and my close friends knew that that's where it was going to be. Well, they had just assumed. And everybody was really excited. We made a point with every decision that we made leading up to the wedding to keep in mind that some of our guests have never been to Disney, or they don't necessarily like Disney, and they're coming for us. So we made sure to kind of accommodate everyone.
But by and large, people were shockingly excited. We were expecting a lot of pushback, especially with the current negativity surrounding the idea of like Disney adults. We would always try to reassure people that we were not Disney adults, but to no avail. But when the time came and we announced that we were getting married in Disney, the excitement that people had for it was surprising and really lovely to hear about.
And some of my friends were disappointed that we didn't have characters.
Yeah.
They were really expecting a whole parade of Mickey, Minnie.
Yeah.
And the rest of them.
Kelly and I, we don't go to the characters. We have never bought a pair of ears, ironically, until the wedding. We're very much there to enjoy the atmosphere around us. We love the service that the cast members offer. We love the food, but we're not necessarily like pixie dust focused people. And we reassured some of our guests who initially were hesitant that we would not be shoving Mickey waffles down their throat and Mickey would not be officiating the wedding or anything like that, because that was a frequent fear, was that Mickey would officiate the wedding. And Disney does not even offer that. Eventually, the people that I expected to push back the most actually were the most enthusiastic about it by the end, because they saw the effort that was going into making this something special for them.
That's awesome. Now, how many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
A little over 100, and our final count was 85.
85 exactly, which is what you need to have the reception in American Adventure. So
it worked out.
Right on the money.
Did you set up a room block for your guests?
Nope.
We did not. Instead, on our website, we created a fairly comprehensive page of 24 different hotels in the area covering every price point that we could, along with like a little blurb if we had stayed there, or if not, a fun fact about it. And we just offered that to our guests. They could click on any image of a hotel and it would take them to the Expedia or Orbitz page for that hotel instead.
Got it. Now, how did you choose the day of the week and time of day for your event?
The date is the closest to our actual anniversary of May 15th. And we were given the option of noon or 5 p.m. And we didn't want a gap between the ceremony and the reception. So we went with 5 p.m.
It was only later that we discovered you could have a 7 p.m., but 5 p.m. ended up working out great for us. It gave a kind of unique flow to the reception that our guests turned out to have really liked. It caused us to lose the cocktail hour, but that ended up becoming a benefit because we could reallocate that money to other things that the guests turned out to be really enthusiastic about.
Got it. Okay. Now, how did you choose your ceremony and reception venues?
We went with the Wedding Pavilion because it's a classic, because it's been a little bit of a dream since childhood. I was lucky enough that Kelly kind of shared that. And we went with American Adventure because my earliest dream reception venue was the Luau at the Polynesian, rest in peace. And with the creation of the DVC Tower, my dreams were buried under so many tons of concrete. So the American Adventure became the runner-up, simply because it has a gorgeous architecture both outside and inside, but also offers the space to host a lot of people comfortably while still accommodating a dance floor, which can be a little tricky to find at the Disney World venues. So for us, having a dance floor while also offering people enough space to mill around was really important. So the American Adventure really lined up with all of those goals for us.
And I think it also gave us a chance to be really creative with the decor because it is a fairly neutral space. As far as, decor and floral is concerned, we did something that they had never done before, which was really exciting. We had greenery on the top floor of the rotunda, and it required a lot of manpower, a lot of customization, but it turned out beautifully.
When we were selecting wedding venues, we took the opportunity during the open house weekend to visit every possible option that we could, and we took photos wherever we could go. And in the American Adventure, what I did, along with any venue that we were really considering, was I would create these Photoshop mock-ups of what would our ideal decor look like. And I developed this idea that I wanted like twinkle lights mixed in with ivy draping off of the second floor balcony. And Floral was actually able to pull that off. Apparently they had to consult with Imagineering and get certain permits to properly measure the second floor oculus and ring everything around there. But it turned out beautifully. And I'm really happy that we chose that venue because the American Adventure offers so many gorgeous opportunities for unique lighting schemes. Like you can do the projections on the floor or the ceiling, you can do the uplighting on each of the columns. It has a gorgeous auditory landscape.
The acoustics are great.
The acoustics are great. At the same time, people can step aside from outside of the dance floor area and still hold a conversation.
I will say my only concern with American Adventure that just bugged me the entire time until I was actually there was that the restrooms are outside, and that our guests would have to go outside of the venue to use the bathroom. And nobody seemed to care. It was fine.
Did you guys use any outside vendors for the portions of your event that you were able to?
Yes, thanks to your recommendation, we were able to book the Roots, who were an absolute godsend for the day and were one of the highlights of the entire day, in fact. The Roots then recommended Cinemedia for our videography, and Steve from Cinemedia was equally fantastic, on par with the Roots in terms of quality of service, personability, and quality of final product. And then we used Stacey Otto for hair and makeup. And lastly, we went with Catherine Martell for our day of coordination. And everyone was incredible.
And we had Sam, who was our actual day of coordinator, and she was incredible. We were actually texting the last time we went down. I think that we have become genuine friends, and that's such a nice feeling, especially when you have vendors that know each other, that work together on a regular basis. You know that they're going to gel and they're going to give you the best experience possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. To Kelly's earlier point, Catherine Martell was actually sick on the day of our wedding and sent her assistant, Sam, who, like Kelly said, was absolutely incredible. But it really was a gift that all of the vendors knew each other. So there was a shorthand in working together that made the day so much smoother for us. And also because all of them are so experienced, they themselves can interface with Disney's cast members so quickly. And every cast member that we told that we had hired the Roots would get so excited because everyone loves Nate and Jenzy. And as soon as you meet them, you get it. Like, I feel like it's typical to spend the most time out of anyone on your wedding day outside of your significant other. The person you're spending the most time with is your photographer. And I could not be happier that we got to spend the day with Nate and Jenzy.
Yeah. And they match your energy. They meet you where they are. And it just so happened that we happen to all have the same energy. So it made it a really, really fun day.
That's awesome. How did you guys choose your officiant?
Our officiant is actually one of our best friends. He himself really enjoys going to Disney very often with his wife, who was actually my best woman. And it came about through conversation while we were planning the wedding that my friend Todd had always wanted to be a groomsman at a wedding, but had never had the chance to. And he always loved the idea of a Disney wedding. And while my wedding party was full, we realized that Todd is actually an excellent public speaker who knows us very, very well and also has no hesitations about roasting either of us, which was very important to us for our ceremony. So he graciously accepted when we offered him the role of officiant.
That's wonderful. Did you guys add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or the reception?
I mean, we were the entertainment for the ceremony.
Yes, we had Steve Dunlap as our DJ. He was excellent, especially when we had an issue later on in the night where we unfortunately lost the majority of our guests to a transportation miscommunication. Steve was able to keep the energy going in a situation that otherwise might have fallen on its face.
He did a fantastic job. And he was so funny and personable. He was a lot of fun.
We were very specific about our playlist in that we are proud millennials and wanted to properly represent millennial culture with a 2000s and 90s pop only playlist. And Steve was able to run with that idea and give us a really good night.
That's awesome. Do you have any menu items or cake flavors from the reception that you would recommend?
Oh my gosh. Everything on our menu.
Everything.
we have been so lucky in that almost every guest has come back to us to say that our wedding menu was the best wedding food they have ever had. We had cheeseburger spring rolls. We had ohana noodles. We had ohana dumplings.
Mm-hmm.
We then combined a little bit of sanaa in there.
We had the sanaa bread service. We had the butter chicken, the basmati rice. We did Le Cellier, the cheese soup.
We did Le Cellier's cheddar cheese soup. It was honestly a mishmash of all of our favorite foods from Disney, because that's what we wanted to show people, was how much we loved being down in Disney, and hope that they would find something that they loved as much as we love it. And it turned out that food was a selling point for all of them.
We had some vegetarian items. And then after we went to the menu tasting, completely changed them to it was an impossible loaf. Looked like a tiny meatloaf. It was the most flavorful and delicious vegetarian item that I've ever had. So we put, that was a big hit.
That was a huge hit. And I am someone who is still a child at heart, and as such is terrified of eating vegetables. And I loved these impossible loaves. One of my favorite items on the menu, along with the sanaa bread service.
Yeah. And with that, they also gave us fresh specialty naan bread, which was out of this world. So good.
And the guests really didn't mind that there was no unifying thought behind the cuisine. Instead, they were more excited that they were just being offered so many unique items.
I think the unifying thought is that we really like it.
Yeah. The menu theme was stuff we like. Maybe you'll like it too.
Yeah.
Do you have any cake flavors you would recommend?
We actually opted out of a cake, and we went with a cake ball machine. During the menu tasting, they allow you to sample different cake flavors, and it's like a giant gumball machine, but it's 4 or 5 different cake flavors. And I said, can we have that instead of a cake? And they said, yeah, I guess.
And it really does resemble a gumball machine. Whenever a couple goes to the tasting, they will know what we're talking about. It is a machine with 5 different faces. It's like a little cylinder, and it has the little crank turning handle. And when you turn it, like a little plastic pod pops out of it with like a cake ball in it. But you can rotate the cylinder to get 4 or 5 different flavors. And you can have as many of them as you want. And we thought that it was the strangest, silliest, just like most ridiculous contraption we had ever seen in our lives. And it became our fixation was the cake ball machine.
So much so that we got 2 of them.
We actually got 2 cake ball machines because, like we've said before, we wanted to offer our guests something, or as many things as we could that were unique to Disney that they would enjoy. And to us. And we were like, well, you can have cake at any wedding, but how many places are you just going to dispense cake from a gumball machine? And people went nuts for it. It was the highlight of the wedding for a lot of people. It was like cake ball machine in first, then fireworks.
And as far as the flavors go within the cake ball machine, my favorite was the gray stuff, but the other flavors were cinnamon churro, caramel apple,
Dole Whip.
And they were all delicious. I mean, the Dole Whip was not my favorite, but
I loved it.
Why don't I just eat a regular piece of pineapple?
It's blasphemy. You can't say that. I swear to you, this cake ball machine was amazing.
It was so much fun. The kids loved it. It was something unique for everyone to do. You know, they got to taste a little bit of everything, and they weren't locked into, one flavor that they may or may not enjoy. And I also can't remember the last time I actually had a slice of wedding cake at a wedding. I always feel like it's just there for decoration. And our thought was, why are we going to spend thousands of dollars on something that is just there for show when we can, put that money into something that people are actually going to enjoy.
And also, we really wanted, like, our initial thought was that we wanted the Ohana pineapple bread pudding with ice cream. So we were like, why would we need a cake if we're like, how can anyone dislike Ohana's pineapple bread pudding? That's better than any cake. But then we got cake gumballs and we were like, oh, we can make this so much weirder.
That's great. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about the dessert party that fit into the timeline of your reception?
Our dessert party actually had to be positioned in a kind of unique way because we had our ceremony at 5:00. The reception began at 7. And then, of course, fireworks start at 9. So in order to get there at 7 and enjoy the hour and a half of the full buffet that we did, we had to start our dessert party at 8:30 and then end at 9:30, which meant everyone arrived in American Adventure. We immediately started serving food, and then everyone had to leave to go to the dessert party as soon as like dinner had ended. And then we had to come back at 9:30 for a part 2 of the reception for dancing. But the dessert party was held in Italy Isola, so a very short walk from American Adventure. We wanted to time it out with the fireworks, which we had not seen yet, but were incredible. We had the cake ball machine, Ohana pineapple bread pudding with ice cream. We had gray stuffed parfaits. I am a Port Orleans like true believer in beignets, so there were Mickey beignets and there were Mickey whoopie pies as well. So that was the one part of our wedding that Mickey was allowed to make his presence known in edible form. The guests loved it. The fireworks were a huge hit.
There were a lot of happy tears during the dessert party.
The amount of Disney skeptics who were brought to tears by EPCOT fireworks is just about the biggest victory that you can have as a Disney World lover, is when you get someone who really isn't into it to finally turn around and say, I get it.
My friend Eva was one of those, and her daughter loves Disney. And she turns to me and she's like, I think I understand now. And
Yep.
She's just sobbing uncontrollably.
Oh. Did you guys add a welcome party before your day?
We did not have a formal welcome party. Instead, we decided to have a kind of informal get-together at Scat Cat's Lounge in Port Orleans because of said beignets. So it turned out to be live jazz night on the night before our wedding. And we gave people an informal invite to stop by when they wanted, have a couple drinks and some beignets on us. And a surprising number of people turned out. But because our wedding was on Friday and people had to fly in from all over the country, we decided that we did not want to host a formal event that might put pressure on people to arrive earlier on Friday.
And Scat Cat, they were really accommodating. We kind of took over the back half of the club, but they were great about it. They did not mind that people were coming in droves.
So it turned out to be cheaper than a welcome party, but with the kind of casual vibe that we really wanted people to feel. We didn't want people to feel pressured about how they spent our time outside of the wedding itself. Because Disney vacations are so expensive, we wanted people to be able to feel as if they could enjoy and get the full like value of a Disney vacation while coming down to see us.
Got it. So I know we talked a little bit about how the dessert party fit in with the reception. Can you give my listeners a timeline of how the whole wedding day fit together?
The wedding day started at 8:30 for hair and makeup for Kelly. Started with Stacey Otto.
In my brain, I was like, I'm going to get up early. I'm going to be showered. I'm going to be ready. It is 8:30. He's knocking on my door and he's like, hi, hello, we're getting married today. I'm like, what? What do you want?
That was her actual reaction, was I knocked on the door ready to say, hey, Are you ready for the best day ever? And lo and behold, I see my wife to be standing, hair up in the air, haggard expression, and the first words that she spoke to me on our wedding day was, "What?" And I said, "Hair and makeup will be here in 5 minutes."
I was like, oh, well, I guess I should shower. Thank God I made coffee last night. So hair and makeup came in around in between 8:30 and 9, and they got to work so fast. There were 3 of them. I didn't know what to expect, but they were ready to go. And I would say they had everyone except for me done by the time the Roots got there at 11. But everyone during that getting ready period, they just they hung out. It was really casual. We had snacks, we had drinks. It was a nice little party. There were giant Sean heads floating around.
My bachelor party was held in Disney on the Thursday before the wedding, and my best woman had gone to Party City and purchased 24-inch tall cutouts of my head, to my absolute horror, but to the amusement of everyone else at the wedding. The Roots arrived at around 11. We had to leave the room at around 3 for first look. Photography went until 4:45 because you have to get your shots in at the monorail. You have to get them in the carriage because we had Cinderella's carriage. You had to get them taken in the lobby, which is a whole to-do, depending on how many people are in the lobby and how many people want to stop and look.
And this is the Grand Floridian.
In the Grand Floridian lobby. Ceremony was from 5 to 5:30. The buses to EPCOT began loading at approximately 6:15. By the time that they were done loading and driving over to EPCOT, it was 7 o'clock for the first part of the reception for dinner. Dinner was from 7 to 8:30, at the end of which guests were promptly escorted over to Italy Isola for the dessert party from 8:30 to 9:30. And then from 9:30 to 1 was dancing and drinks back in the American Adventure. We had decided, due to the lack of venues for an after party in Disney World, to extend our reception from midnight to 1 a.m. So we added an extra hour in there.
Got it. Okay. So when you guys were planning, what were some of the most important aspects where you focused your attention or your budget?
Food was the most important thing for us. More than anything, when we started discussing planning the wedding, we talked a lot about what are the things that we remember from weddings past. Because Kelly and my relationship really began at a wedding that we went to in Georgia back in 2017. And we found that the thing that we remember the most from every wedding that we've been to was the food, good or bad. We didn't necessarily remember the decor. We didn't necessarily always remember the DJ, but sometimes we did remember if the dancing was especially good. But we always remembered the food. So that was the majority of where we put our attention, and our budget was into getting the best offerings for ourselves and our guests that we could. After that, I would say it was decor. We really wanted to transform the American Adventure space into something unique and fun, and transforming a ride lobby into a wedding venue does not always come cheap. And like we talked about, we decided that we wanted to try something new that Floral hadn't done before in adding floral to the second floor, which Floral was kind enough to do.
We spent a lot of time mulling over potential favors for our guests as well.
Yeah, we did spend a lot of time thinking about favors. Like, there's such a sense of for us of gratitude for the people who attended our wedding for making that trip all the way down there, that we wanted to think of ways to properly thank them, and also to add a little bit of fun to the actual proceedings at the reception. So we bought all these silly things. We bought like Polaroids. We bought like ear headbands off of Etsy. We bought, oh my gosh.
So we had Instax mini cameras, and we also had photo books for people to put in the photos that they took during the reception. We had little photo frames, magnetic photo frames for them to take home with some of their photos, light up sunglasses. And then the Disney provided favors. It was the Mickey Rice Krispie treat and a cookie that I did not get to eat.
It was good. I would say bonus thing that we put a lot of attention and our budget into, the Cinderella Royal carriage, like the glass carriage.
Yeah, that was.
We were really focused on getting our money's worth out of that carriage, and it was worth every penny.
The horses are really sweet.
I have to ask, because Sean, the carriage is your dream, but usually it's the bride who rides the carriage to the wedding pavilion. Did you guys shake it up? What'd you do?
I mean, there's been some role reversal since day one of wedding planning.
I didn't wear the dress.
He did not wear the dress. But yeah, he did. Sean is very meticulous and detail oriented, and he has to be for the work that he does. But that led to a fantastic experience. You know, he had everything planned down to the minute, I would say. And there were PowerPoint presentations, there were spreadsheets, there were mock-ups, and he really did it all in planning this. He was the brains behind the operation, and I was the brawn when it, came time to do that.
But to your question about the carriage, yeah, I was fully aware that is typically reserved for the bride.
He didn't care.
I did not care. It also helps that I do work in comedy, though I am not a comedian myself. But I do gleefully take on the role of village idiot amidst my friends and family. And I had the benefit that every single person who had ever met me and broached the topic of a Disney wedding knew that I was getting in that darn carriage one way or another. And so when we were planning, Kelly started telling everyone that I was going to go in the carriage and she was going to walk behind me, which for the record did not happen. We decided, because we had a first look, we were going to ride over together. So I graciously shared my seat in the carriage with my wife. It was a sacrifice on my part, but I'm glad I did it. So,
I mean, being honest, my dress took up 90% of the carriage anyway. So,
yeah, geez, I didn't even get to enjoy the whole seat because half of it was taken up by the train. It was everything that I had hoped it would be. Made all the better by the fact that my wife was fully aware and pointing out how ridiculous it was, how into it I was.
I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Riding in that carriage and like every guest stopping and staring at you. It is truly a marvel of engineering and excess. Which is everything that I want out of a Disney experience. So how many chances are you going to get in your life to say that you rode in a giant glass carriage pulled by 8 white mini horses? There's no other place that can happen. And by gosh, I was not going to let gender stand in my way to have that experience. And I did in fact get to pet the ponies.
I mean, really, that's what the whole day was about. He didn't care who he married, just that he wanted to pet the ponies.
Gosh darn, the pony was great.
The only way to do that is if you pay for the carriage.
Yeah.
The horse pet comes with a price.
Yes. Unfortunately, in order to pet the horse, I had to get a whole marriage.
Okay, so then were there any aspects of this day that were less important to you, where maybe you saved some money or just your effort?
As far as effort, we didn't do assigned seating. We had two tables reserved for immediate family, but the rest was kind of a free for all, and it seemed to work out really well.
We had gone to a wedding the previous year, a very large wedding, where there was no assigned seating, and it led to us making several new friends. When we were done with the conversation, we could get up, get more food, and try a different table. And a lot of our guests are very extroverted, very personable people, and we we asked them, and I feel like that was very important, is that we asked their opinions on whether they were okay with unassigned seating, and when they gave an enthusiastic yes, we went along with that idea, and I think it did save us a lot of stress in the end. Financially, deciding not to have a cake and allocating those funds towards other unique desserts like the cake ball machine or the pineapple bread pudding was memorable for the guests and made us feel like we were offering them something unique to Disney, which made us feel better about our choice to get married there. We barely spent anything on our ceremony floral, and I think that was a great choice.
Yeah.
The wedding pavilion in and of itself is gorgeous. If you look at the photos with no decor, it is still stunning. So we, rather than doing any elaborate floral, had candle trios placed at the end of every other pew. We had an altarpiece, and that was it.
And the altarpiece we were able to transfer over to our sweetheart table at the reception.
And I think that was a great choice on our part, because you should be focused on your significant other during the ceremony, and everyone else is going to be focused on the two of you. Very few people are going to remember your ceremony floral because ceremonies move so shockingly fast. I felt that spending more money on the reception floral and decor turned out to be a much better investment, because it's the same price as the ceremony floral, but you're spending, what, 10 times more time with that floral than you would towards a ceremony piece. We also, when choosing floral, went with more inexpensive silk options rather than fresh, and no one noticed the difference.
Because of the choices that we made, we had to go with silk. We requested cherry blossoms, and because they only bloom in a very short period of time, the silk was the better option.
So out of all of this, what ended up being each of your favorite memories of your wedding day?
The carriage, 100%.
Ponies. It was really nice getting married, but ponies.
Watching Sean pet the ponies was, because just seeing how happy he was like a kid at Christmas. It was really sweet.
The pictures are horrifying.
Oh, they're fantastic. What are you talking about?
I look like I'm about to pass out because I'm so excited.
You were so excited. Just for the record, the Roots photos are phenomenal. They are technical masterpieces, even if the two of us are making horrific faces the entire time.
But in all seriousness, I would say that actually the favorite memory was the fireworks. Being able to celebrate getting married to the person that you love the most in the world, having fireworks go off, and being able to say that, like, you cracked some of the biggest anti-Disney guests and made them cry to fireworks is like, it's a coup de grace.
And my other favorite part was the second dance that we did. So we took dance lessons for our first dance, and it was a dance. We did it. It was great. And then later on in the evening, Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush came on, and we just went to town and modified our original dance routine and danced to that 8-minute song like our lives depended on it. It was so much fun.
I will add one more option, which was my favorite memories were petting the ponies, the fireworks, but also we had an incident during the prep phase. And so far as I had a very nice custom suit that I had owned for a few years. When it came time to pick out either a suit or a tux for the wedding, Kelly let me know that she actually preferred the suit that I already owned. I'm not going to object to that. Sounded great to me. So obviously suits just get easily rumpled when you bring them down from New Jersey to Florida. Wanted to look my best, so I sent the suit off to Disney dry cleaning the day before the wedding. Suit came back in its bag. When we returned from the parks that night, all seems well. The day of the wedding, about an hour and a half before the Roots arrived, I was talking to my wedding party team in a room off from the living room where Kelly was getting ready, and was trying to talk them through whether I should wear a bow tie or a regular tie. And one of my wedding party asked, well, why don't you put on the suit now and we audition the options? And when I took that suit out of the bag, it turned out that something had gone wrong with dry cleaning the night before, because nearly every single button on the suit was shattered into pieces.
Or completely gone.
Or completely missing. Nearly every single one. And this was a 3-piece suit. So the waistcoat had seams ripped open. The jacket had 2 out of 3 buttons reduced to essentially like a shard about the size of a small Lego piece for each. And we all stared at each other for a second, just in shock, and then burst out laughing, because we knew that we had an hour and a half. And the great thing about weddings is that no one cares about the groom as long as the bride looks beautiful. And I knew Kelly was already going to be beautiful. So we set to work and had one of the best adventures in all of our combined friendships. We were running downstairs getting every sewing kit that the front desk could send to us. We were cutting the suits like cuff buttons off and reassigning them as buttons for the waistcoat and the jacket. We eventually kind of gently brought my mom in, who had just finished getting her hair and makeup done. And this whole time, Kelly is happily getting her hair and makeup done with no idea that absolute chaos is happening in the next room over. I am useless with a thread and needle, so I was more or less told to go sit in the corner while three women essentially sweatshopped over this suit, trying to Frankenstein it back to life. But we were having the time of our lives. And honestly, by the end, you could not tell that this suit had been essentially held together with masking tape and bubble gum by the end. At some points, the buttons were so bleached and broken that we found a blue magic marker and colored in the buttons with magic marker. And the whole time that I was with Kelly, who was in her gorgeous, gorgeous dress, I'm just like, please don't notice that none of these buttons are the right size.
I did not
or some of them only half a button. And no one noticed other than my best woman, who every now and then would come over to me during our photos and yank my hand down if I was like holding our hands up in the air in like a celebratory pose, because the seams that had ripped open in my waistcoat were starting to rip back open again from dancing around. But we had so much fun. It was such a lovely bonding moment that happened between three of my very best friends who had never met before, but became very close friends in the course of the day because of this very strange emergency that happened. And it was just one of those special moments that you never knew could have happened. But lemons out of lemonade.
Wow. Okay. So beyond the suit debacle, did anything else go wrong or just not turn out like you expected?
Transportation was one of those things. There was a pretty large miscommunication, but it was fixed.
It was handled. When we extended our reception by an hour, from midnight to 1 a.m. ending time, our BEO had not been amended previously. When it was ending at midnight, our BEO would read last early departure at 11 p.m. When we extended our reception to 1 a.m., it should have changed to last early departure at midnight. Unfortunately, it did not change. So what occurred was transportation informed our guests that the last early departure would be at 11. And if you did not take the 11 o'clock bus, you had to wait until 1 a.m.
Because of that, we lost more than half of our wedding guests
at 11
11 p.m.
Yeah. Which could have been discouraging, but the people who stayed were among all of our closest friends. Decided to stay until 1 a.m. This was the core group. And Steve Dunlap, our DJ,
he did a great job
just
leading the troops.
Just took it up to 11. And we were able to party to all of our favorite music, with all of our favorite people. Steve just playing hit after hit. Everyone just enjoying themselves and being able to relax at the end of the night, going from a group of 85 people, which may not sound like much for people like us who live up in the tri-state area and are used to weddings that have, 150, 200 people. But 85 is still a lot of people when you need to say hi to everyone and get your photos taken and somehow find time to eat. So for it suddenly to shrink to about 28, 30 people for those last 2 hours could have been really discouraging for some people, but for us turned out to be a huge blessing because we were able to really, I'm going to sound a little woo-woo, kind of absorb the joy of the night with a smaller, more intimate party.
Oh, that's wonderful. Was there anything that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were worried about and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
Favors, actually.
Yep.
We were so worried about making our guests feel appreciated and giving them this extravagant, unique experience. But it turned out that just being in Disney World and having a well-planned wedding with a great support staff and fireworks and fun food was more than enough for them. So all that worry of some of our more traditional wedding guests who were very emphatic about us needing favors, in the end, everyone felt satisfied.
Yeah. I mean, and I think also because we had the ears, we had the cameras, we had, the light up sunglasses, all of that stuff. It's always nice to have a take home thing from the wedding.
Yeah.
But we agonized over it for quite a bit. And we realized that at the end of the day, it wasn't a huge deal.
Also, finding time to eat. We would hear so many horror stories of people talking about
how they don't eat the whole day and they're starving by midnight. So we took that opportunity to say, okay, well, let's make it so we can eat. So instead of going around to the tables when everybody else is eating, which is the worst time that you want to talk to somebody, we received everyone as they were coming into the venue.
Yeah, we greeted people as they came in, but props to Disney, insofar as they actually assigned us 2 attendants who made sure that we ate and that we got to try everything on the menu, which was such a small but lovely touch. When you've put so much thought into the menu, to not be able to enjoy it always was one of the things that would make me the saddest when I would hear stories from other people who had gotten married. So I thought it was really nice that Disney made sure that we were able to enjoy the food that we were offering everyone. So that was really nice. Also, trying to help guests plan their weekends. We gave our guests a lot of resources on our website to help them plan a Disney vacation, or not, if they were more universal people or who just wanted to stay off property and enjoy the pool at their hotel. We tried to give them all of those resources in advance. And we were really worried that people were going to be calling us being like, okay, well, how do I book a ticket for the parks? How do I do this? As long as you leave your guests a breadcrumb trail to find them, people will make the effort to plan for themselves, and they will appreciate you for giving them the resources, but also the space to enjoy their time down there.
Got it. Okay. Is there anything you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
I actually would not have extended the reception. It is fairly expensive to extend your reception.
If we could do it over again and we knew we were going to have that transportation issue, we wouldn't have extended. We would have ended at midnight.
Yeah. And also, I am shocked to say this because this is a controversial opinion. This might come out of nowhere for Kelly. I would have rather spent the money on even more food, or even the major domo rather than the confetti cannons.
Makes sense.
I know the confetti cannons are a very, very popular choice. And I think part of it may be because only a very small number of our guests were able to enjoy them. But when I think on it, the things that the guests loved the most were those uniquely Disney experiences like the fireworks or the fun desserts. And I might have actually offered them like an extra dessert or maybe like entertainment.
We could have hired the domo to just follow my dad around.
Or the major domo, because the major domo does this whole bit if you hire him with the ring, where there's a fake out where they trick your best man into thinking that he forgot the ring, and the major domo appears in the middle of the ceremony and they play a little fanfare and he'll come up and like give the ring to the best man and make it seem as if like the best man has made this big mistake, but it's a fun little thing. And in retrospect, I'm just like, I wish I'd gotten that major domo instead of the confetti cannons. But I think that I am very much in the minority in that opinion.
Got it. Okay. Do you guys have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
I mean, go over the BEO with a fine-tooth comb. Absolutely. Language is really, really important. So make sure you pay attention to that. Because what we did learn is that everyone that's involved, like the BEO is the bread and butter, and everyone involved goes off of what is written on the BEO. So if something is incorrect on the BEO, it's going to be incorrect for everyone that's working on the wedding.
Make sure that your BEO spells out what you want and what you've discussed with your planner as explicitly as possible, because the cast on that day are only going to go off of the BEO, not something that you've privately shared with your planner that they didn't jot down. More often than not, your planner will not be your day of person.
Right. We were very lucky that she was there to say hello.
Yes.
Along with Floral, and that was such a nice surprise.
Yeah. I would say, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Be confident in your vision, but there's no need to be aggressive.
Right. Being nice gets you a lot further than being mean. We heard a lot throughout the day that we were pleasant to work with because we weren't yelling and screaming at the cast members. And that is apparently something that they get a lot of, which, I imagine, because it can be a really stressful day, but there's no reason to take it out on the people that are trying to help you.
Yeah, Disney is so used to trying to administer the best quality of service that they can. And they're also very much used to dealing with angry people. Having a tantrum over something isn't going to impress them. They've seen it 1,000 times before. But apparently what's rarer is just being universally pleasant while being firm. Also, don't be afraid to state your ideal price. You don't have to wait for Disney to tell you how much something costs, especially with floral. We had several pieces that when we first discussed them with floral, when floral came back with its initial quote, they were extremely expensive. And we came back and said, our ideal price for this item to meet our budget is X. And 9 times out of 10, they were able to accommodate that request without significantly affecting the quality of the piece.
I would also recommend have an idea of what you want before that 6-month mark, because it moves so fast. And they're not necessarily going to give you a big idea book for what you should do with your wedding. We went on blogs and the Facebook groups, and everyone has recommended make a PowerPoint, lay out exactly what you want. So that's what we did. And for the most part, they were able to do it.
Yep. Make a PowerPoint with as many images. The Pinterest board that they request is equally helpful. Mm-hmm. But when having your meeting with your planner, having a PowerPoint helps you organize your thoughts, and also gives them a visual reference to actively bounce off of in your meeting and maybe say, oh, we might not offer that, but we do offer this, and you're getting that information up front because you only have those 6 months. Right. And also read the Fairy Tale Wedding Guide back to front. We genuinely would not have known about a third of the things that Disney weddings offer without having thoroughly combed through your guide. It was genuinely a godsend for us. Sure. We never would have been able to have the wedding that we wanted to have if we weren't aware of all of the offerings that you managed to put into that book.
That's awesome. Well, Sean and Kelly, I think you've offered a lot of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married or having a vow renewal at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you so much for having us.
It was great.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.